2 Samuel chapter 11. This story is one that we can all relate to. We've all heard of, may even been a part of some of the sins that have been committed in this chapter. The great King David, just a human being. It happened one afternoon. King David was sitting on his couch, looked over to the roof of the building next door, and saw a beautiful woman that he had never seen before. Her name was Bathsheba. He asked his servants to go and get Bathsheba and bring her to his home. And she, being summoned by the king, wouldn't have said, "No, I'm not coming to the king's house." She came and spent the afternoon with the king, ate and dined with him, and also slept with the king. After a short period of time, Bathsheba came back and said, "King David, I am pregnant." And David thought he could solve that problem by sending a message to his chief, the chief of his army, Joab. So he asked the messenger to take a note to Joab. And the note said, "Joab, please send Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba's husband, home from the battle." So Uriah came home, and he went to King David's home. And they talked about the battle. He asked how Joab was doing and how the other mighty men, the battlers were fighting in the battle this year. And they ate and they drank and they dined, and King David sent Uriah the Hittite to his home to sleep for the night. And David was amused when he heard that Uriah had not gone home to sleep in his own house, not his own bed even. He slept at the entrance to his home. And while explaining this, Uriah said, "The Ark of the Covenant, God's tent, all the men of Israel that are fighting are not sleeping in their own beds. Why should I, just because I was summoned home, sleep in my bed or with my wife?" So David's plan was backfiring already. So they talked about the battle some more this day. And David dined and then drank even heavily more with Uriah the Hittite. This happened that night and the next. And Uriah didn't sleep on anything but the entrance to his house, like the front end of our driveways, the hardened earth. So when Uriah awoke that next day, David had already penned a letter to send with him to Joab. And the letter read something like this: "Please, Joab, put Uriah the Hittite into the battle where the most desperate, valiant fighting goes, where he might die." And Joab did what the king had ordered him to do. He put Uriah the Hittite where the heaviest fighting was, which was where they drove their enemy back, and their enemy was up on a wall, and they were fighting the enemy up onto and beyond the wall. And many Israelites died, including Uriah the Hittite, within a few days. And Joab got a messenger to take a message back to the king. And he said, please tell the king if he is mad that we have lost a few of our fighting men, including Uriah the Hittite. But please deliver this message that it came from me, Joab, that we have suffered some losses and men have died, including Uriah the Hittite. And now this left the greatest king in Israel with 2 sins hanging over his head. The sin of sexual immorality, adultery, and also the sin of murder. He set Uriah the Hittite up to be killed purposely, to cover up the pregnancy of Bathsheba, the pregnancy that he impregnated in her body. And when Bathsheba heard that her husband had been killed, she mourned and grieved. And after that, King David took her into his house and then took her to be his wife. This is God's word.